I think the biggest story in the country right now is the Twitter files, and it's really interesting that this is a story that the mainstream media is not covering, for the most part, pretending it doesn't exist. New York Times, of course, did do an article on the strange politics of Elon Musk, but they're not covering the files themselves. And let's review. We're talking about 4 troves of data. 3 of them have already been uncorked. The 4th is coming soon. So the first wave, the first file, was the censorship of the Hunter Biden story. And there was a long thread on that, and it devastatingly exposed the way in which Twitter, but now this by implication applies to other platforms as well, suppressed this story, not because it was false, but because it was true. And there was FBI participated in the suppression, so there are a lot of bad actors here. And at Twitter, of course, the bad actors were Jack Dorsey, Parag Agarwal, who replaced him as the CEO, Vijaya Gadde, and this creepy character who I'll talk about a little bit more in the next segment, Yoel Roth, 35 years old, a guy right out of Swarthmore. And these guys are making decisions for the whole country, what people can see, what they can talk about. They're deciding whether to ban congressmen. They're deciding whether Trump should be banned. It's really scary when you think back about the kind of power that these strange characters exercised. Now, there's some debate. Elon Musk, I think, seems to think that Jack Dorsey is not the main culprit. In fact, he once said that Jack has a, quote, pure heart. And I think if this is true, then Jack is a little bit like, well, there's a character in Dostoevsky that is called the Idiot, title, by the way, of one of Dostoevsky's books. And by idiot, Dostoevsky doesn't mean he's a dummy. It means he's an innocent. He doesn't know how the world functions. So it could be that Jack Dorsey is an idiot in that sense and being manipulated by the diabolical troika of Parag Agarwal, Vijaya Gadde, 2 Asian Indians, and this creepy Yoel Roth character. Now, the impact of the story is really hard to measure because it has so many reverberations. Let's remember, here's an article I'm holding from New York Magazine. Twitter is not shadow banning Republicans. This is completely now refuted by the Twitter files. The Twitter files, as I say, part 1 was the suppression of the Biden story, the Hunter Biden story, and the Joe Biden story. Number 2, the systematic shadow banning and censorship of political opponents, conservatives. 3, the banning of Trump, the specific banning of the sitting president of the United States. And 4, yet to come, the bans that were imposed owing to COVID. In other words, prominent figures in medicine who are shut down because 4 Twitter executives who have no experience, no expertise, no real knowledge, but nevertheless, some of them are getting promptings from the CDC, promptings from the FBI. So there are actors outside of Twitter that are part of this regime. At one point, the CDC had a kind of open portal to Twitter. They could just basically put in recommendations, ban this guy, shadow ban that guy, and then Twitter would then responsibly take action. Wikipedia, you can go look at it. It has been for now, I think, 2 years referring to the accusation that Twitter shadow banned people based on Republican affiliation or conservative ideology as, quote, a conspiracy theory. By the way, Wikipedia calls me a conspiracy theorist, even though I've never put forward a conspiracy theory in my life. So here's Wikipedia exposed as lying, because after all, the banning of conservatives, we now know, is not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual conspiracy. It's a conspiracy on the part of Twitter, exposed now by the new owner of Twitter, namely Elon Musk. Now, you see all kinds of efforts here to sort of defend Twitter. People like Gadde and Roth genuinely don't believe they did anything wrong. And I think this is somewhat true. They live in an ideological bubble. They genuinely think that their opponents are vicious enemies of democracy. They are saviors of democracy. By the way, fascist regimes have thought the same. Mussolini genuinely thought that his opponents were a threat to Italy. The early Nazis genuinely thought that Jews were evil people who should be suppressed and forced to wear a Star of David. So they should be ostracized. They should be excommunicated. Later, of course, more deathly and murderous policies ensued. Now, For years, leftists made themselves comfortable with systematic regimes of censorship by basically saying Twitter is a private company. And also, complainers should, quote, go build your own platform. And what's so cool is that this has now become karma for these guys. By the way, not that Elon Musk is banning them. Elon Musk is extending free speech to them. But even Twitter as a free speech platform is too much for them. They want censorship. They demand censorship. They're not going to be happy unless they have censorship. And my message to them was simply their earlier message to me, namely, Twitter is a private company and go build your own platform.